Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Today is a Saturday and the weather is horrible in Glasgow. Just look at that. Yeah, it's raining like crazy. So what I'm doing is a bit of analysis and a bit of a video for yourselves and for me also. What I'm going to discover or analyze today is how many properties do you actually need to replace your job. So how many properties do you need to buy with a mortgage to not have to work anymore? So what I started with is a UK average salary. How much does a normal UK person get? And from what I can see here, median average salary in the UK is 37 to 38,000 per year. That's roughly the midpoint. Some people get less, some people get more. But let's just take that as our guide. I've put in 38k into the calculator and it spit out a monthly income of around 2,500. Let's now go through the spreadsheet that I've been making for the past couple of hours. So you are working your job, you are doing your 9 to 5, you get a bit sick of it and you think, okay, I'm going to use property to make me financially free. I'm going to use property to give me passive income and I'm going to use property to replace my salary. There are many ways. Sourcing is the best way, but if you just want to do buy-to-let, this video is purely buy-to-let. If you want to do a simple buy-to-let strategy where you buy a property with a mortgage, rent it out, buy another one, rent it out, and that's it. How many of those do you need to really replace your income? So let's have a look at it. To be more tax efficient, you should open a limited company. So that's the first step for all of our scenarios. And for the first scenario, you buy one property at £100,000. I'm still talking about Scotland, Glasgow, and areas around Glasgow, so that is really my focus. So let's have a look at the numbers and see, can you buy a property for £100,000 and then forget about your job, quit your job, and then just live from that property? So to buy a property at £100,000, you need a £25,000 deposit. You're going to be paying straight away an 8% additional dwelling supplement, which is a tax. Your solicitor will charge about £1,500, so the total that you need is about £34,500. So even just to buy the first property, that's roughly where you need to be. If you want to do a simple buy-to-let, none of those smart bridging, refinancing, any of that, just a simple buy-to-let, because that's what this video is about. And if you go for the interest-only mortgage, I assumed 5.5%, which I think is reasonable. In this point in time, maybe in later years I will change it. You're looking at just over 4,000 per year as your annual mortgage interest payment. 100k property in Glasgow, you can rent for about 1,000 a month, so 12,000 a year. Your insurance is going to be about 250 quid a year. Your compliance is things like your gas checks, your electric check, pat check. That's about £200 a year, so £80 is gas, and then a bit extra is every few years doing the electrical, potentially Janela, stuff like that. So maybe a bit light, but I think relatively reasonable. The repairs, 10% of your rent, so you're just putting some money aside in case something goes wrong and things need to be repaired. You might get lucky, you might have no repairs at all throughout the year, or you might get unlucky and the minute you rent it, the boiler has a huge failure and you have to get a £4,000 boiler. So that one is an average, you can never estimate that perfectly. The mortgage interest we already talked about, so this is kind of the account. You get 12 grand in, pay 250, 200, 1200 and 4 grand. You're left with a profit of £6,222. Remember, that's a profit within your company. You can't just go and start spending that. You need to find a legitimate way of taking that profit out to be able to then use that. Obviously, a smart way would be just to leave that profit in the company, pay the tax, have the net profit, and then just accumulate that over time. But this video, as I said, is about buying those buy-to-lets and replacing your salary. And if you keep accumulating money in the company, you can't replace the salary, obviously. So you have two ways of taking money out of the company. One is through dividends as a director, and a shareholder, and two is through salary. So the first scenario we have here is the dividend. So you have your profit in limited company, you pay your tax on it, you're still relatively small, your tax is 19% corporation tax, at least at the time of filming this video. You're left with a net profit of £5,000. Because you're under your tax-free allowance, you don't have to pay any dividend tax on it, so therefore you get £5,000 into your bank legitimately without avoiding any taxes, etc. That's about £420 a month. Or you can take it out as a salary. Again, in this case, you are under the threshold, so you don't have to pay employee or employer national insurance, you don't have to pay income tax, you don't really have to pay anything. And what that means is that you get pretty much the whole £6,222, which is £518 a month. So if you do it this way, you're investing essentially £34,500 of your money, getting a mortgage, and after that you'll be left with either £420 a month or £518 a month. So that gives you an idea of how it works at the lower level, at one property level, and it also shows you that you can't really retire. 420 quid a month, 500 quid a month, I doubt anybody's going to be able to survive on that for the full month. So that's the first scenario. But apologies, I used scenarios here and here, so it's a little bit confusing. But this is the first thing we look at. It's one property, £100,000. Next, we look at 3 properties at £100,000. So same thing again, but instead of buying one, you're buying 3 of those properties. So you're investing more money, you're getting a bigger mortgage, but your aim is to quit your job and have a source of income. So can you do it with 3? Let's have a look. You need a 25% deposit, which is 75k. You're still going to be paying additional dwelling supplement of 24,000 for the 3 properties. Legal, you're likely going to buy them, I'm assuming you're going to buy them separately, so £4,500 for legal, 1,500 each. So the total amount you need in this situation is actually £103,500. A lot of property gurus talk about that. If you've got 100k sitting there, don't get 1 property cash, get 3 with a mortgage. So this is kind of the similar type of thing. I need to do separate analysis to look at 100k property, 1 buying it cash or 3 with a mortgage, but this is not what this video is about. This is purely looking at how do you retire yourself and become financially free from buy-to-lets. So the investment you need is 103k, and you're going to be just over 12 grand a year in your mortgages, interest on the mortgages. You will then rent each of those 3 for 12,000 each. So you'll end up with 36 grand a year in rent. You're triple the insurance, 750, triple the compliance, triple the repairs. Obviously the mortgage we already talked about. So that leaves you with a profit of £18,666 for the year. Again, 2 ways of taking that money out of the company. First one is dividend. So you will pay the corporation tax on your profit. You'll be left with about 15 grand. And the dividend tax on the 15 grand is very minimal because you've got £500 dividend allowance. You've got £12,570 tax-free allowance just for any income that you receive. From what I understand, the first 12,570 is taxed at 0, and then from 12,570 all the way up to 50k, you're taxed at 8.755%. So that's fantastic. In this situation, you only pay £179 in dividend tax, and therefore you get £14,940 as a yearly income, which is around 1,250 quid a month. What if you take it as a salary? Well, you take the salary off the same as the profit. You will then be paying the employee tax, income tax on that. There's employee national insurance on that as well, and employer national insurance. So this will be paid from the company. Those 2 you will pay yourself. So after that, you'll be left with 0 profit because you took it all as an expense. And you get £14,937. So with this situation, whether you take it as a dividend or as a salary, you're left with about the same. So now you've got 3 properties and you're taking home around £1,250 a month. So I would say still a little bit light, but if you're being very tight and very careful with how you manage things, you could potentially come out of your job on that salary. Depending on your living situation, do you own your home, do you live with parents? There are ways around it. It's still a bit light, but as you can see, if you own the 3 properties, if you've invested 100 grand, you could be expecting around £1,200 a month as a steady income stream. Okay, now let's look at, let's remove this for now because that's gonna get a bit confusing otherwise. So we just make this black. Now let's look at 10 properties. So we looked at 1 property, we looked at 3 properties, and now we're going to look at 10 properties. So if you buy 10 £100,000 properties, you need a deposit of 250k. You're going to be paying the tax, additional dwelling supplement of 80,000. Your legal is about 15k. I'm assuming you're buying them all different places and potentially different times, different sellers. So you actually need to invest 345,000 in order to get the £1 million of property in this case. Your interest on the mortgage will be £41,280 per year. Your rent will be the same again, 10 properties at 12,000 per year each, so 120,000. Take away your expenses, you are left with £62,000 profit. And then you've got 2 options there. You can take it as a dividend. It is actually the perfect spot. It's the sort of sweet spot because you will take the corporation tax off. You'll be left with 50k, which, as I've said, is where the 8.75% it's where the 8.75% dividend tax ends, and it goes up to 33.75%. So actually, as a dividend, this is very, very lucrative. That's what you should really be doing. You pay minimal tax on it, 3 grand, because you have, as I said, your tax-free allowance, 12,570, £500 dividend tax allowance per year, and you're only at 8.75% at this level. You will then get £47,000 a year, or about £4,000 a month. If you take it as a salary, you'll be paying the income tax, you will be paying employee national insurance, you will be paying the employer national insurance from the company as well, which will leave you with 35,700, so about 3,000 a month. So at that level, if you take it as a dividend, you get 4 grand a month. If you take it as a salary, you get 3 grand a month. So quite a significant change between the two, so definitely worth doing the dividend route. And what I've just tried to explain in here is that when you get to this level of buying 10 properties, you might actually be able to find somebody who's selling all 10. So it might be somebody who owns 10 properties and wants to exit and doesn't want to be involved in it anymore. And if that's the case, your numbers actually look better. Let's have a look. You will still need the same deposit because it's £1 million. You might negotiate a slightly lower offer. You might be able to buy it slightly lower, in which case the deposit comes down, the annual mortgage comes down, your numbers increase. But assuming it's the same price, you are buying a portfolio from somebody, so it is more than 6 properties, and therefore there is no additional dwelling supplement on a portfolio. It's a crazy loophole that they still have. I'm not sure if soon they're going to remove it, but you're literally going to be saving £80,000 just by buying it all together as a portfolio. Your legal will also be less, because with the previous example, your legal was 15k, because you're buying different flats from different sellers. Therefore, each time the solicitor has to talk to the seller, do the search, etc. If you're buying a portfolio, the solicitor deals with one seller, and they do it all as a package. So they're not going to quite charge you the same as one property, but there's a lot of efficiency there. So if it's a similar type of properties, for example, in a similar area, then you will potentially pay only £7,000 instead of 15 in legal. So what that means is that the total you need for this amazing £1 million portfolio with a mortgage actually drops from 345,000 to 257,000. So you still have the same monthly income from that portfolio. However, the initial investment that you need, the money you need to save up in order to boost your growth to that level, is significantly less, which is why people and rich people are buying portfolios. I haven't been rich enough, I haven't bought a portfolio just yet, but you can see in this analysis, and to be honest, after this analysis, I'm tempted. It's a lot of money to be able to get, but the upside is pretty big. You're essentially investing £257,000, and with a smart route of taking money out, you are getting £4,000 per month as a cash flow, as a money that you take for yourself. That's really good, and I think roughly that's where you need to be. So if you want to not have to work anymore, unless you can really squeeze your expenses and buy potentially 3 properties, 10 is probably the number that really works. This is just simple buy to lets. If you get each property with a reduction, if you buy and then wait a while, there's capital appreciation, you take some of that out, reinvest it. If you do all the smart things, that can really speed things up for you. But just looking at a basic strategy, this is what you've got. So that was quite an interesting analysis for myself. It took me a while to get all those numbers right. I had to double check all the sources quite a few times. If you see any issues, just let me know. I will share the spreadsheet as always, and I hope you've enjoyed. So easy enough. All you have to do is get 10 properties at £100,000 each, and there you go. You're getting £4,000 a month as a constant money into your account. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing more videos like this. Subscribe and see you in the next one.